the grid appear. Draft your first line here. Design a new world. Watch your vision unfold.
Hello everyone, welcome to the first edition of Engineering Drawing with AutoCAD. Now, we've had previous knowledge on technical drawing, and with technical drawing we learned how to use the drawing board and the various instruments and tools to construct our drawings. Now, because of the introduction of AutoCAD into our universities, we are now diverging into the use of AutoCAD for our engineering drawings. So this is a series that is being introduced to help us to be able to migrate from the use of the drawing board to AutoCAD. Now, if you can see from my screen, this is the AutoCAD interface. With the drawing board, you had your drawing board, and then you have your pens, your pencils, your massets, your rules, your T-square, and that is what you use for your construction. But with this, we are going to draw on the laptop with a software called AutoCAD. Now, the full name of AutoCAD is Automatic Computer Aided Drawing or Drafting Software, and we are going to first start this by linking our board to the software. We are going to start by linking our board to the software. Now, our board or the drawing board is mostly where we place our paper and then we do our drawing. But for AutoCAD, this is what we call the drawing area or the model tab background. Right, so this is a model tab background, and this is where we are going to do our drawing. We also have our set of tools, our pencils, rules, compass, set squares as the tools that are here. Our drawing tools, which are the pencils and and our modifying tools, which is our rule, our compass, our eraser, and all that. So when you look at the interface, we have here what we call the application menu, and right after the application menu we have what we call the quick access toolbar, and then we have the title bar, which is this part, and then we also have here the info status bar or the info center. Then down here we have our ribbon menu. Every set of tab gives you a list of menus, and the menus are arranged in sections. So we have the draw, which have all the draw tools, the modify, which have all the modify tools, annotation, which has got to do with elements that you annotate, and on and on and on. So most of the tools here, or most of the tab, houses menus, various menus that have been selectly organized into the home tab. So every tool here has its origin from all the tabs here. In order to make working easy with the software, we have this home, which gives you access to most of the tools that you use just at a glance. When we come down here, we have the file tabs, and after the file tabs we also have the, as I mentioned earlier on, the model tab background. Now down here we have what we call the command line. All right, the command line or the command bar, and on the left side here we have the model or layout tabs. On this side we have the status bar, and the status bar also houses some of the tools. Now my AutoCAD 2024 is quite different because of some of the plugins that have been added, and that is why we have these sidebars right here. But for a normal version of AutoCAD without the addition of this plugin, you will not have these two sidebars and this top standard bar right here. Then on the side we have what we call the UCS, the user coordinate system. So it tells you the axis. This is the y-axis, this is the x-axis. And mind you, we are using the we are drawing in 2D in the current status that we are in, or in the current drawing mode that we are in. We are dealing with 2D. So we have here the x and then the y-axis. Then on the top right hand side we have what we call the world coordinate system. That is the WCS. Now the world coordinate system acts like a real world exploration. We have the north, west, east, south, and you have here the top view. As I said, since we are drawing in a 2D view, this is more considered like a top view in a 3D setting. So we have here the top view. Now the world coordinate system doesn't give you much help, or doesn't help much, especially if you are dealing with 2D. But when you move to 3D, you are going to have the full cube, and that can help you to navigate in a 3D environment. So this is the general layout or the interface of AutoCAD, and that is how it looks. So to just compare it to the board, these are our tools to draw. We pick our tools from here and then we draw right on this paper. We can be able to save our drawing with this icon, that is a save. We can open a new drawing with this. We can open an existing drawing with this, and we can also save an existing drawing with this, or save a new drawing with this, the save as. So if you have previous knowledge in technical drawing, you would have studied lettering, dimensions, tangency, types of lines, orthographic projection. So we are going to relate some of the things that we've learned already to what it is in AutoCAD before we move on further. So the first thing we are going to look at is lettering. Lettering simply refers to how you write, or your write-ups in your drawing. And basically, when it comes to AutoCAD, it's quite simple. You just need to use the text to write your text. So we are straight on going to look at the text tool. We are straight on going to look at the text tool because that is where lettering is originating from. So this is the lettering tool, text, or let me say this is the text tool in AutoCAD. Now when you click right on the arrow down here, it's going to tell you multi-line text and then single line text. Now the multi-line text allows you to draw something like a text box and write your text within that box. The line tool just allows you to click anywhere on the screen and then just type your text in a straight line. Before we do that, the first thing we are going to do is to try and reset our screen. So we are going to click in the command line, just click in the command line and then type zoom, ZOOM, and then press enter, and then come and click on A for all, or we type A and then we press enter. So typing A in the command line, pressing and entering, or clicking on A gives you the same response. It tells AutoCAD the option that you want. You realize that all the first letters of the words here, A, all is blue. This is also blue, this is blue, and they are in alphabets. And that tells you the letter that when you type would help the software to recognize the option that you selected. So if it is A, because this all has a capital letter which starts with A, I press enter, the software would accept it as the option. So I'm done with that. Then we go to the text tool. We select the multi-line text. We just click. We click on the text, the multi-line text. We click on any part of the screen. We click, and then when we click, we don't drag. Okay, don't drag. Just click. Move the cursor to the opposite corner. Right. This is the corner where you clicked. You move your cursor diagonally to the opposite corner, and then you click again. Now when you click, wait a second, let the text menu load up. Realize that your ribbon changes to this text menu. Then you type your text. Right. Now, this is my text that I've typed, engineering drawing. When I am done, I just click on the screen. Right? When I want to edit this text, what I will do is just move my cursor, and this cursor is called the model tab pointer. Right? The model tab pointer. So I'll just double click on the text, and then I'll highlight the text. If I want to increase the height, so I highlight the text, then I go to the height, text height, then I click, highlight what is there, and then enter a new text height and press enter. Right? Now, when I type in the new text, and the text, part of it has moved to the new line, or to the new line, and I want them to still remain on the same line, I'm just going to move my cursor to the bottom here. When the cursor changes to this sign, I click, hold, and drag. Okay, so I click, hold, and then drag, and as I increase the text box, the new word or the word on the next line moves to the first line. Then I release, and from here I can be able to do further editing. I can justify my text. I can put them in columns. I can include symbols and all that editing that I want to do. When I am done, I can just click on the screen again or click on close text. So that is how we add text, and basically how we letter in AutoCAD. Now to erase this, I'm going to introduce you to a tool in the modify tab, or the list of modify tools. Now the modify tools are basically tools that are used to modify objects that are already drawn. So I will click on the engineering drawing, just click on the text, and then when I click on the text, I then come and click on the erase tool to erase it, or hit the delete button on the keyboard, right? So I click on the text, press delete, and it goes. Now we are done with looking at lettering. Let me repeat it again. So click on the arrow by the A, that is text, multi-line text. Click on the first point, move your cursor diagonally to the opposite point, click, type in your text, click to highlight your text. If you feel it's too small, come and click in the text height, type the height of your text, press enter, and then if you feel you need to put the text in the same line or all in the same line, you just move, click, and then drag the right, then release, and you are done. So you can click on it and then we delete it again. Okay, then the next one is the single line text. So for the single line text, you just click here on the arrow, select single line text, and then click any part of the screen to indicate the height, right? So you click on the screen, it will ask you text specify height. Now the command line is one way that helps you to be able to interact with the software. As you click on a tool, it corresponds or tells you what is required of that tool for you to use this from the command line. So you realize that with all that we have done initially, we were looking at the text from the command line to follow up on how we should be able to complete the command. So after clicking on the screen, it is telling us to specify the height of the text. So we will type 10, press enter, and then it will ask us for the angle, 0, of course, and I will explain why it's 0 quite soon. So we press enter, and then we type in the text. So in engineering drawing, then we click. Now for the single line text, if you click, the tool doesn't end, it keeps blinking on the screen, giving you alerting you that your tool is still active and you can still type. But if you want to truly end the command, you can press the escape key, and then when you press the escape key, the tool sequence or the tool workflow ends. Now, as I said earlier on, AutoCAD measures its angles from, I'm going to do an illustration. Yes, I'm jumping a bit with the tools because of this illustration. Don't worry, with time we will get there. So let me complete this by adding the last one. So AutoCAD measures its angle from the x positive axis anti-clockwise. So from the x positive axis we have 0, we have 90, we have 180, we have 270. 0, 90, 180, 270. So when you are entering your text and your text is going this direction, the way it went, then you are writing at the 0-degree angle. That is why we accepted the 0-degree angle and typed in our text. Now, as time goes on, we will see how we can be able to deal with these angles when it comes to AutoCAD. So just to explain why, we pressed enter when it asked us the angle and it was 0, because we were typing our text towards a positive x-axis, right? So that is why we didn't change the angle. If we had wanted to type upwards, then we would have changed the angle to 90, and that would have made us type upwards. So we can try that. Can click on text, single line text. This is our starting point. Our height is still 10, and to specify the rotation angle of the text, we are going to type in 90, and then we will type our text, and then we click on the screen, and then we press the escape key, and realize that immediately you press the escape key and you end the command, the text goes upwards. So this is at the 90-degree angle. So that is for text. Now let's move on to dimensioning. We've learned how to dimension using the board, but let's look at how we can also dimension in AutoCAD. As I said, we are moving in the sequence relating previous knowledge that we have had in technical drawing to AutoCAD. So the sequence in which we are moving is not similar to a normal AutoCAD class or learning how to use AutoCAD. However, by the time that we'll be done with this sequence, we will be able to also have acquired the knowledge on how to use AutoCAD and also how to use AutoCAD to do our drawings. So let's move on to dimensioning. Now the dimensioning icon here is what we have, dimension, right under the annotation section, and it is next to the text tool. Now the dimensions here or AutoCAD works quite different from how we dimension on the board, in the sense that most of the process is automated. So let's say, for example, I have a rectangle and I want to dimension this rectangle. First, the dimension options here, when we click on the arrow next to the linear tool here, right at the annotation section, linear, and then we click on the arrow beside linear, then we have the list of options that we can use to dimension. Now the options for dimensioning are with respect to the geometry in which, or orientation in which, the element we want to dimension is in, or the object we want to dimension is in. So linear conforms to linear lines and right, or curves. Aligned corresponds to aligned or inclined lines. Angular is used to measure angles. Arc length is used to measure arc lengths. Radius is used to measure or dimension radius. Diameter is used to measure or dimension diameters. Then we have the ordinates for writing coordinate text, and then we also have the jogged that helps us create dimensions for lines or arcs or curves from their centers. So depending on the drawing you have and what specific orientation of geometry you have, this rectangle is made up of straight lines. So when I select the linear line or the linear option to dimension, I'll click on it. Then I come and click on the point that I want to dimension to. Now in dimensioning, there is something which is quite useful when dimensioning, and that is what we call the object snap. Now the object snap, which is this green icon which is showing telling me the endpoint of I'm at the endpoint of the line helps us to be able to snap to the exact point that we want to dimension. Now you can turn on the object snap by clicking on the icon here. This is the object snap. If you cannot see the object snap in the status bar, click on the customization button here, and then when you click on the customization button here, you come up to this. Let's find it, object snap tracking. Yep, so this is object snap tracking. Then you tick it. If it is not ticked, tick it. When you tick it, you just to tick it, you just need to click and then it gets ticked. When it is ticked, it would appear at the status bar. So we've clicked on the object snap and it is right here. We come and click on it like this and it turns on. If it is dark or if it glows, it's on. If it's faded, it's off. So we turn it back on and then we go back linear. Then we come and click at the end point. We want to dimension this line from here to here. So we click on point 1 and then we click on point 2. We don't drag the mouse, we just move the mouse, okay? And then we click with the left mouse button. So we click the second point and then we move the cursor up. We don't drag, just move the cursor up. And when you are okay with the position of where the text or the dimension would have to be, you just click again. So again, we go to linear, we click on linear, we click on this first point, we click on this second point, and then we move the cursor in this direction, and then we click. When we are okay, we click to put the dimension in place. So we click again and then we are done. Now you would realize that our dimensions have decimal places. We'll look at how to fix that later. So let's further complicate things by using the line tool. So we are going to click on the line tool, which is right at the draw section. So we click on the line tool and then we come and click on the endpoint here, and then come and click on the endpoint here again. And when we do that, we want to end the line tool. So we just press enter to end the command or escape, and we are done with the line tool. This time we are going to use the aligned feature. So we select aligned, we click this endpoint, we click this endpoint, and then we move the cursor down and we have the dimension for aligned. We just click on the screen and place the text. So that is how we can be able to place text in drawings. Now the next one that we are going to look at is angular. So we click on angular, and with angular we need two lines that make the angle. So line 1, and then we click on line 2, and then we move the cursor to place the dimension, and we click when we are okay with the preview. So angular helps us to be able to dimension this angle. We can also go again, click on angular, click on this line, and then we click on this line, and then we move the cursor to place the text. And that is how we use the angular feature of dimension. Now I am going to stop here for a moment so that I do not do so much. But this is how we use the dimension, or this is how we dimension. So we've gone through linear, inclined, angular. And of course, you would realize that radius is used for dimensioning radius, and then diameter is used for dimensioning diameter. We will look at those features very soon. Now, you would realize that our dimension is quite small with respect to the drawing that we have, and also it is in decimals. If we want to change the format of the dimension, there is something that we can do to do so. What we have to do is move on to annotate. As I said, we are still under dimensions. So we move to annotate, we click on annotate. And when we click on annotate, we come to the dimensions section. This is the dimensions section. And then we click on this little arrow or button here. Click on it. And we have what we call the dimension style manager. So this is the dimension style manager. So if we want to make changes to the dimension that we already have, because the dimensions do not look as much as they are supposed to, we can make those changes from the dimension styles manager. Now let's go through the dimension styles manager and see what we can do to make our dimensions look much better. What we are going to do is to click on modify. We want to edit the existing style of the dimension tool or the dimension format. We don't want to change anything. We simply want to edit the current style and make it better. If we want to create a new one, we'll just click on new and then we'll follow the sequence as to how we modify. So whether new or modify, you click on whichever option comes first. So new or modify. We are going for modify. So we click on modify. Now when we click on modify, we have this dialog box opening up. And when you look at this dialog box, this is where we are going to do our modifications. Now, as I said, you can click on new or modify. And clicking on new would also bring you to the same setup. So we are going to first start with lines. Now when you click on lines present to you the various options that we can change with respect to the lines that make up the dimension. So this part is a line, this is a line, this is a line, and all these elements make up the dimension. So from the lines tab, we have the dimension lines, which we've been able to change some from by block to by layer. Then we continue with the extension lines. Now the extension lines are these lines, 1, 2, they are the extension lines. This is the dimension line. So we can also change the extension lines to by layer or leave it that way. And then the extend beyond dimension lines is these lines. What if you want to extend these lines beyond this dimension line, how long or the length with which you want to extend them to. So let's make ours 3. And the offset from origin. Now where the line comes into contact with the drawing, the extension line is not supposed to join or touch the drawing. Right? When we are drawing the extension lines for a dimension, we don't need to let the extension lines touch the drawing. It becomes quite difficult for you to separate your drawing from the extension line. So we have to provide a bit of a space so we can make that 1.5. Now the changes or the lengths to these things becomes much easier for you to be able to predict as you keep using the software. So after that, we are going to move to the symbols and arrows. So we click on symbols and arrows. So for symbols and arrows, we are dealing with these arrowheads. Okay, with these arrowheads. So for symbols and arrows, we can make the selection. We have first arrowhead, second arrowhead, and then we have a leader line for dimensions with leader lines like this one. Okay, this is the leader line. So for us engineers, we can either use this or the oblique tick or the open arrow, but whichever option maybe your company uses, you can also decide, or your teacher or trainer would ask you to use, you can also use, but there are various options. You can select one, and in most cases, if you select the first one, the second one is also changed to the first option, because in most cases the arrowheads for the first and second look the same. Then the arrowhead size, so we can make the size 6, and then from there we move on to text. So for text, we can also change the text by layer, standard text, fill color none, text height, the height with which we want to type the text. So we can decide to make it 10 millimeters for now. Then we move on to text placements. Above, vertex, horizontal centered, so horizontal it should be centered, and also from left to right. Then offset from dimension line. The text shouldn't sit right on the dimension line. There should be an offset. So we can make that, let's say 1. Okay. Then text alignment, that is the text alignment to the dimension. It should be aligned with the dimension, or you can use ISO standard, or you can use horizontal, that is if you want to use that style. So whichever method you want to use, you can use that. Then we come to fit. So how the text is fit together with the dimension. Alright, so for me, I don't usually go do anything to the fit options, but when it comes to the text placement, I prefer to put it over the dimension line without a leader. Then we move on to the next, which is primary units. So for primary units, we can then select primary units, the units for dimensioning, and the precision, that is the decimal places. So I would prefer no decimal places. And then from there we can then move on to the next, which is alternative. If you want to add a secondary unit of measurement or dimensioning, you want to add a second one, maybe you are to do your dimensions in both millimeters, in both decimals, and in imperial units, so you can do that with respect to the alternate units. Then if there is a need for you to apply tolerances, you can also click on tolerances and apply those. Right, so when we are done, we are going to click on OK. And then when we click on OK, we will now come and click on close. Right, if we had set a new dimension style, we would have clicked on that new dimension style and we would have set it to the current. Okay, but since we did a modification, we will just click on close, and the style or the dimensioning styles that we did have been affected. So you realize that our dimension texts are larger, our arrows are larger, and it is more readable, okay, legible. So that is how we can be able to make changes to our dimensions, and that is through the dimension style manager. So the dimension style manager, once again, can be found at the annotate and then the dimensions section. Just to the right side, you see this arrow, so you click on it, the dimension style manager will pop up. You will click on modify, and then you will follow the steps to make change your style and make your formats. So that is how we can be able to make changes to our dimension, and then also how we can affect the styles of our dimension. So on this note, we close the chapter on dimensions. We will revisit dimensions after we start doing much complicated drawings. Now, there is one thing too that I would just like to teach you, and that is how to erase. So let's say we have so much drawings on screen and we want to erase all these at a go. We can go to Control, or we can hold on the Control key and A for all, and then press the delete key on the keyboard to delete it. That is one way to go. Or we can click on this part of the workspace, move the cursor, no dragging, just move the cursor over all the objects and then click on the other part and then press delete on the keyboard, and that would also get rid of everything on screen. So we've been dealing with drawings. The next thing is types of lines. When it comes to engineering drawing or technical drawing, the lines we use have meanings, and they tell us a lot about what we are doing or the object we see. As we know, engineering drawing or technical drawing, it's a language, and the type of line used tells us exactly what the language means, and it gives us much more details into the drawing that we are looking at. So the next thing we are going to do is see how we can be able to select the different types of lines, and to do that we are going to look at the section called layers. So right at the home tab, this is what we call the layers. Now the layers are like a preset of lines or types of lines or elements that are defined for specific roles. Right? Elements that are defined for specific roles. So let's say you are drawing a house. The element that represents a door, the element that represents a door, the element that represents a window, the element that represents the wall, and so on and so forth. So when it comes to the layer properties, we are going to click on this button right here. When it comes to layers, click on this button here. When we click on it, it's going to open the layer properties dialog box. Now the layer properties dialog box is where we can be able to set up our layers. As I said, layers are specific ways in which we assign various elements roles, and they also help us to filter some of the selections or the selections that we do, because if we've been able to define all the elements, then we can be able to isolate some elements from other elements just by looking at how we've been able to define them. So let's look at the layer properties manager. So the layer properties manager is where we set up our layers. By default, there is always a layer set, and which is 0. By default, there's always one layer set, which is 0. Layer name 0. So we can also add our own layers depending on what we are doing. So to create our own layers, we are going to click on this one, new layer. Alright, so click on it. Let's say we want to create about 3 layers, so we click once for this, 2, and then 3. The next option or the next menu is create a new layer in a frozen state. When you create a new layer in a frozen state, you would create a layer, but you can't be able to use the layer because it is frozen. Then if we want to delete a layer, we select the layer and then we click the delete key and we delete it. If we also want to make a layer current, or we want to use that specific layer at that given moment, we will just select that layer and then mark it as current. Now when we move to this section, what we are going to do is that we are going to name the layers. So we click on the layer, right click the layer, go to rename layer, and then we type in the name of the layer. So I will make this construction 2, construction line. Then I click. Then I go to layer number 2, click, right click, go to rename layer. I am going to make this center line. Click on layer 3, right click, rename, and then make this hidden line. Let me just create one for text. So I'm just going to click on new again, text, and then click here. So I have construction, trying to expand this, yeah. So I have construction, I have center line, I have hidden, and then I have text. So after changing their names, we now come and look at the various options that are available. We have on. Now you can turn a layer on or off. Turning a layer on or off means that you would see the layer in the model tab background if it is on, but if it is off, you can draw with it, but you are not going to see it. All right, so let's say, for example, I use the line tool to draw a line. And let me delete that. So let me for now do this rather. Let me select the construction tool, set it as current, and then draw a line. So I click on the line tool and then click first point, move the cursor in this direction, and then click again, and then press spacebar or enter. We will go much details in the line tool very soon. Now let me turn off the layer for the line tool. Yes, I want to turn it off. You realize that the line tool, the line that I drew with the construction line, turning it off, is no more there. Let me click on it again. When I turn it on, it's there. So that is how the on and off works. So when the layer is on, you see the lines. If it is off, you won't see that any line or element that is drawn by that layer. Then the next one is frozen or freeze. Freeze. So freeze is used to freeze a line so that it becomes quite difficult, a layer, so that it becomes difficult for you to select that layer. So let's say I've frozen center line, and then I click and then I try to make center line the default. See, it's telling me that center line cannot be made current because it's being frozen. So when I freeze a layer, I cannot be able to use that layer, right? Okay, now the next one is lock. When I lock a layer, I cannot be able to edit that layer. So realize that after locking the construction layer, I can't be able to do anything to this line. I can't delete it, and it's in a way frozen because it's been locked. I can also say that, oh, I don't want to plot or print some specific elements, and plotting or printing means the same. Now the reason why we say plot in AutoCAD is that when it comes to drawings, we have specific type of printers which are called plots or plotters that are used to print drawings or plot drawings. So that is why we have here plot. So if I want to prevent a specific layer from plotting, I just have to click on the plot, and it is not going to print. When I'm printing the drawing, every drawing or every layer or every element constructed or drawn with the construction layer will not print. Let me bring it back. Then the next one is color. So I can select the color by clicking the color of a layer. I can change the color of layer simply clicking on the color itself, and then selecting the color that I want to use and then clicking OK. And that layer or the layer's color will change. Then we have line type. Line type are the various type of lines that we have in AutoCAD. So if I want to change the line type, I can do so by clicking on the continuous. So for center line and hidden line, they are not continuous lines, so I have to change their line types. So I am going to click on the continuous line corresponding to center line. So I click on continuous line, and then when I click, it opens up the line type dialog box. Then I will click on load. Okay, so continuous, I click on load, and then when I click on load, I will move through the text to select or change the type of line. So load, let me select or change the type of line. Now this is a center line, so I would have to load up a center line. Now the center line, the lines here are in alphabetic order, so I just have to look for center or C. So this is center line, and we have center line, 0.5, that is the scale, and center line times 2. So depending, if you want 2 times the normal center line, you click center times 2, click. Then when I load it up into this section, I can now click on center line again and then click on OK. Or I can decide to load more into the temporal space. So I'll click OK, and then you realize that the center line has changed. So now let me make center line the default, and then click on the line 2, click on the line 2, and then draw a line and see. Realize that I am now drawing a center line, right? So if I want to do that to hidden line, the same thing, I will click on continuous, go to load, select hidden line here, click OK. Then when I need, I click on hidden, click OK. Then I need it, I either change it, I can set it to current, and then when I set it to current, I click on the line 2 and then move the cursor in this direction and click and then draw. So that is the hidden line, that is the center line. So that is how you can be able to change the various types of lines to the type of line that you need. Now when you click on load, you realize that there are so many types of lines, so whichever one you need, you can be able to get it from here. Then we move on to line weight. Line weight corresponds to the thickness of the line that you need. So when I click on the default and I come and select 0.4 and click OK, I am supposed to see a change in the line weight. But the line weight also works with a tool called the LineWeight tool, and that is also at the status bar. Now these tools that are at the status bar are called accuracy tools because they help you draw more accurately. So this is the one responsible for showing the lines that have different line weights. So when you put your cursor on it, it will tell you show or hide line weight. You click on it for it to glow, and when it glows, you realize that this line weight that we changed, or the hidden line weight that we changed, has taken effect, and that is thicker than the others because we are using 0.4 here and the rest is by default. Right. So if we want to remove that effect, we just have to click on the line weight again and then it goes. So we've looked at 2, features here, the object snap, and then the line weight. Okay, so now let's look at what we do with this. So we are going to click on the construction, set it as current, obviously change the heading back to default because I am going to use this for the rest of the illustrations. Since we are done creating the layers that we want, we are going to click close, and then we close the dialog box, right? So let's click close and close this. Now when we close this, let's move to this section, properties here. So after we've created our layers, we can be able to use this section to be able to switch from layer to layer or make some changes with the type of line type we use. So I click on the right. So now that we are done with the property, the layer property setting, we'll see how we can be able to switch between layers when we are working. So one thing we can do is to use the same property layer right at this section. We can be able to click on the arrow here, see this drop down menu, and then switch from one property from one layer to the other. So I can switch to construction, and then click on my line tool, click start point, move in this direction, click, come down with the cursor in this direction, click, and then go in this direction and then click, then press the space bar to end the command. I can decide to select the line here, go to this point, same layer properties section, click on the drop down menu, select center line. My line is not long enough, so let me revert, and then let me use this instead. Click on center line and realize that this will change. After you have done changing the center line, you click the escape key, you press on the escape key, and the highlighted line goes away, or the highlighted line that you selected goes away, and it brings you back to the construction line. If you don't press the escape key, you keep using that specific layer until you press the escape key, right? So again, if I want to change this to center line, I'll click on this, come to the layer property section, click on the drop down menu, select center line, and then when I'm done doing the selection, I press the escape key to end the command. If I want to change back, I can just highlight them, click, select construction, and press the escape key to change them, right? So we can, after creating our layers, we can be able to select our layers randomly from the layer property manager and be doing our drawing and switching from layer to layer, right? Okay, so that is how we can be able to select various type of lines and then be able to switch from one specific type of line to the other. And that is it for the layer properties manager. So the next thing we are going to look at is the line tool. So we've looked at the interface, we've looked at lettering, we've looked at dimensions, we have looked at layers. So the next is to use or to look at the line tool. So the line tool is basically used to draw a line. There are various ways in which we can use the line tool. So currently my layer is set to construction. My current layer, or my default layer, is set to construction. Okay, so this is the line 2. So you click on the line 2. Now when you click on the line 2, it will ask you to first specify a point. So we click specify a point, and then you move the cursor in the direction in which you want to draw the line. You don't drag, do dragging, nothing. Just move the line in the direction in which you want to draw. Now, mind you, I'm able to draw straight lines because of what we call the auto mode. I'm able to draw a straight line because of what we call the auto mode. Right? So let me end this command. So I draw the line in the direction in which I want to. I move the cursor in the direction in which I want to draw the line, and then I enter the measurement. So let's say 100, 100, and I press enter. Now when you move the cursor up and down, you realize that the command is still active, so you can just press enter again to end the command. When you end the command, nothing shows at the command line, right? When you end the command, nothing shows at the command line. If there's something at the command line, then it means that command is active, so nothing shows at the command line. Now this is the auto mode, and the grid lines that you are showing, like the graph-like line, is what we call the grid mode. So I'm going to click on it. This is the grid mode. I'll click for it to go off. You don't need it for now. And then this is the grid mode, this is the auto mode. So this is what allows us to draw straight lines, vertical and horizontal. When I turn it off and I click on the line 2 and I click on this one point and I move the cursor, you realize that the line I would have to gauge to draw it straight. It's not by default, right? But immediately I toggle on the auto mode, I can now draw straight lines, right? So the auto mode is very important for drawing straight lines, vertical and horizontal. So I will draw my line in this direction, enter 150, type 150 and press enter. Then I'm going to move the cursor down. When I move the cursor down, I will then type 150, 150 and press enter. Then depending on what I want to do, if I want to draw a box, I'll move the cursor in this direction, enter 150 again, 150, press enter, and then move up and then type 150 again. So 150, enter. When I'm done, I press the enter key again, and the command ends. So I've been able to draw a line, straight line, vertical and horizontal, to get the rectangle or the square as we are seeing. So you can also click on the line 2. You can also be able to click the first point, and then on the next point you can just click. If you want to draw without dimensions, you can just click. But with dimensions, when you click, you are moving it to the direction in which you want to draw the line. Don't drag, as I said, no dragging. Just move the cursor and then type in the command in the command line. I will recommend that you turn off all the accuracy tools here, turn them all off, and just have the auto mode, the object snap tracking, which we will get to know it uses later, and then the object snap on. Only these 3. There is one tool that is usually active when you start using AutoCAD, and that is the this right here. That is a dynamic input. Now, one reason that's why the dynamic input is not something I advise beginners to use is because it is something that is an on-screen prompt. When I say on-screen prompt, it tells you what you have to do right on the screen. However, it creates problems when you are not used to it, because there are some options that you need to enter that you will not know what to do, whether to press tab or to press enter, and so it creates a problem. after some time, when you are used to the software, it becomes quite easier for you to be able to use a dynamic input. Let me turn it on and let's see how it is. So mine has always been off. So to turn it on, I am first of all going to click on the customization button right here, and then come up to dynamic inputs, and then click on dynamic inputs. Now when I click on dynamic inputs, I am going to come down here and then find the dynamic input, which is right here. Okay, this is it, dynamic input. So I click on it and it becomes active. So my dynamic input is active. So now let me click on the line 2. I realize that as I click on the line 2, I have these displays on screen. So I click on the first point and then I move the cursor. Then let's say I enter 200. Enter. Then I have to move my cursor down. So in the situation whereby I need to use draw an angle, I can press the tab key for it to switch to angle and then type an angle. So let's say 45, and then press tab again and then type in the length of the line that I want to type. So let's say 200. Enter. Then if I want to continue or switch to an angle, I can then go again to angle, and then I can be able to type let's make right, can be able to type 270, right? Then I click on the tab to switch to the text, that is the length of the line, and then I type 250, right? So then press enter again, then I end the command. So that is basically how to use the dynamic input, but it becomes quite confusing when you are a beginner. So I mostly advise you get used to AutoCAD a bit, then you can use the dynamic input to be able to draw. We would see how we can be able to use a dynamic input to draw. We'll go into that details, but for now we are concentrating on the line 2. So we can use the line 2 to draw continuous lines. We can delete the line 2 by selecting the various line segments one by one, or you can click on this space, move the cursor over the whole line or the number of lines that we've drawn, click on the end, the other end, and then hit or press the delete key to delete the lines. We can be able to clear all lines that we've drawn using that method, or we can also use the control, hold down the control and A for all, and then we press the delete key and then we delete it, right? So that is how to use the line 2. So for example, if you have something like this, let me just switch minimize my workspace and bring in a drawing. So let's say I want to draw something like this, right? So what I am going to do is to click on the line 2, and then I will click I'm going to turn off the dynamic input for now. So I click on the line 2, click on the first point, move the cursor in this direction, 240, press enter, right? Then I can roll the mouse button in up or down, trying to find the end. Now this is happening because I've reduced the space, my workspace. Now if you draw a line and it is quite difficult for you to see the end of the line, okay, it's quite difficult for you to see the extent of the line, what you do is that press enter to end the command. Okay, so press enter, end the command, come to the command line, type zoom, so ZOOM, press enter, and then you type E for extend, so E, and then you press enter, right? Then you roll the middle mouse button up or down, roll it down, and then you'll be able to see the extent of your line. Okay, so first zoom, ZOOM, E for extent, roll the middle mouse button down, and you see the extent of your line. Okay, so you can continue, right, or you can start from the beginning. All right, so to continue, I'll click on the line 2, make sure that the object snap is on. Okay, now if the object snap is on, what we are going to do is that you have to check if you've selected the various options that can help you select the right part of the line. Okay, so make sure the object snap is on, go to the arrow, the drop down menu beside it, just click on that arrow, and then you are going to see the object snap settings. Make sure that you've taken these. If you've not been able to do that, click on the object snap section, settings, click on the object snap settings. When you click on it, then you are going to see the settings, so you just take the ones that are here, and when you are done taking, you click OK. Right, now after you are done, make sure that it's active. Okay, it's been toggled on. Then you click on the line 2, and then you come to the end, come and click at the end point. You see it's showing you the end point of the line. You click the end point of the line, and you can continue drawing your line. So you click on the end point of the line, move the cursor down, enter 145, so type 145, press enter. Then you move the cursor in this direction, enter 65, press or type 65, press enter, move upward, and then type 25, move in this direction again, type 120, so 120, enter, move up again, enter 25, move in this direction again, enter 55, and then when you get here, you can be able to use the close command to close your figure, because you are left with the last option. Or you can just move the cursor to the end point and then click, and then you are done. After that, press enter to end the command, and then you've been able to draw your figure. So we can be able to use the line tool like this to be able to draw a line. Right, so we will end this section here. We are going to end this session here. I hope you've been right, so we are going to end the session here, and we would continue next time. So I hope you've been able to learn one or two. That is the use of the line command and the whole interface of AutoCAD itself, and how you can relate AutoCAD to the technical drawing that you've been able to do or you've done previously. We'll see you next time. Enjoy the rest of your day.